thought I'd make the most of some blue skies to take Sky out this morning and maybe go on a little longer walk because we've been quite rainy the last week. We've been sort of showery weather, so it's been like rain on and off and then sunshine. It's kind of difficult to like know what the weather's going to be doing and difficult to dress for. We've definitely got like winter still hanging on the edges because we've still got some snow on the hills, which is a bit disconcerting at the end of March, but not unusual in the Highlands to have a bit of fresh snow, and we even had a bit of sleet and snow at ground level the other day. So yeah, it does take a little bit of a while for spring to fully arrive to the Highlands, but it's definitely on the way, which is lovely and exciting. So I thought I would share you guys just a wee weekend vlog starting today on Friday, and yeah, show you what I'm getting up to. I'm going to make some soup, I want to chat some books, all kinds of lovely slow living stuff. Yeah, I think we might get wet. I'm reckoning we're not going to get away with a full walk without rain, but that's fine. I got all my waterproofs on ready. Yeah, we're just going to enjoy a nice Friday morning walk. I went on a wee trip recently. I went down to Haworth, which is down in England, in Yorkshire, and if you don't know, that is the village that the Bronte sisters, the authors Bronte sisters, came from. That's where they lived, so it's been somewhere that I've wanted to visit for a really long time because I love all of the Bronte sisters' work. Oh well, all of that I read, I should say. I've not read all of it. I read Wuthering Heights, which I've always said is one of my all-time favourite books, Jane Eyre, and I think the often underrated Tenet a Wife or Whore, which is by Anne Bronte, and they're just, yeah, I'm sure you've heard of the Bronte sisters. They're really, really famous, and yeah, I was really excited to go down and visit. I was en route basically. I ended up staying over just one night in Haworth because I was en route to visit some friends down in Suffolk, which is also lovely. So I thought I would share some of the bits I got from there. I also did a little journal page, which I thought was quite cute. I'm sorry if you hear banging in the background, by the way. We've got roadworks going on just outside our house today, which is fun. But yeah, I've talked a little bit about this journal more on my Substack, but I've not done like a travel page before, but I thought I would do like a little one for this trip. So essentially, I just put like, I got some leaflets and stuff. I went to where the Bronte sisters lived. I went to the parsonage, which is like a museum now, so you can go in and they've kind of recreated it like how they would live, and you've got a lot of their like personal possessions on the show, and it's really, really good. I really enjoyed it. So I cut a few bits from there, and I also went into just one of the bookshops was open when I was there. Wave of Nostalgia, that was what that bookshop was called. And then I did a little bit of writing down here from my time visiting Top Withens, which is said to be the inspiration behind the building Wuthering Heights, because it's this old farmhouse. It's a ruin now, but I think it was not a ruin back in the day when Emily Bronte would have visited there, and it's just like perched in the moors above the village, and it's very like atmospheric. I wasn't sure I was going to be able to make it up there. First of all, the weather was due to be like really terrible, and I didn't have a huge amount of time, but I did manage to, and the weather was actually fine. Well, it was drizzly and overcast, but I felt that was completely appropriate for Wuthering Heights. I felt like going up into the moors and being all sunny was just like, would have felt really weird. But yeah, very, very special visit, something that's going to stay with me for a long time, and I shared about it on my Substack. You can go on, I'll link it below, totally free to read, and I showed some of my photos as well on there, and yes, centering about my experience of visiting this ruin, and it was really, really incredible. But I thought I'd show you some of the bits I got from the bookshop. So yeah, it's really tiny, Haworth, and it's like in the middle of like more urban areas, so it's a little bit weird. I do want to explore more of the general North Yorkshire moors, because I don't go to much moorland around here. There is moorland, I should do it more often really. I usually spend more time around the rivers and the forests. But yeah, we'll start with the books anyway. Yeah, so the village is really small, and it's like a quaint cobbled street, and I would say that I went to one of the cafes. Oh, I can't remember what it's called, something Cafe in the Cobbles. I'll link it, I'll put the name on screen. That does lots of vegan cake options, which is great. I got one of their vegan carrot cakes in the morning, which was lovely. But this bookshop I went to was one of my favourite bookshops I've ever visited. It was really well put together, and it really centred around the idea of feminism and female authors. Obviously that's inspired by the Brontes, were female authors for a time that there wasn't that many. And as I went in, they were actually filming, because they just won Best Bookshop of the North. I think they're in contention to get Best Bookshop of England, or even maybe the UK. So it just shows that it was like really well put together, and they were really lovely. But it did mean that I spent a fair bit of money in there, but it happens. So the first thing I knew that I wanted to get was to get a collection of Emily Bronte's poems, because I've never had this. I've not read many of her poems, so this is really, really lovely, a really nice addition, and really nice that I got this in Haworth as well. And yeah, a lot of her poetry is about the moorland and that kind of nature, and also quite a lot from her like imaginary worlds. They had quite a lot of imaginary worlds, the Brontes, as children, so that's quite fun to read. But there's loads in here, so they've been really nice to have a little look through. And then I couldn't resist getting this copy. Look how beautiful. I've seen this copy before. I think other YouTubers have shown it before, and I just knew that if I saw this I was going to have to get it. I have Wuthering Heights, I have even a nice copy of Wuthering Heights, and I live in a tiny home, so I can't really afford to get many multiples of books, but this is one of my all-time favourite books, and it's just so up my street in terms of like the design. I just had to get it, so it's now pride of place on my bookshelf. This was a complete accident. I only bought this because every single bookseller in there, I say every single, there's 3. It's only a small bookshop, but I think there was quite a few in because they were filming. But anyway, said this was their bestseller and really amazing. So it's The Strange Woman. I think it's self-published, in fact. It's basically about witches and about how these people, it's local, like based on local history and local folklore about women that are trialled for witchcraft in Yorkshire. And it doesn't say much on the back of what it's about, but it's basically about life in the 1600s and women that are being charged by witchcraft. So again, it's kind of going down that feminism line of, you know, these women being charged with something that's obviously not true and things like that. I don't really know. I just knew that they all recommended it, and I just thought, if you're recommending it, it has to be good. I really like the fact that the author, and she's older as well, I think the author's like 60s, 70s, their first book, and self-published. I was like, good on you. So yeah, I'll let you know. I'm quite curious. I might wait. Seems like more of an autumnal read, so I might put that on my autumn reading list this year. And then I managed to find myself a Wuthering Heights candle, which was I was very, very pleased about. As we all know, I'm a big candle lover, and yeah, it honestly, it smells like the moors. It's just, I don't know how they do this. candle companies are so clever, and it's a really lovely potent scent, but like not overwhelming. And I even loved, you know, the design on the front, and I had a few in there. So it's the Vintage Book Candle Company. I'll link them below. They might become my new favourite ever candle company, because this scent is stunning. And I had like the Jane Eyre one I smell, and then I was going through all of them. There was like Pride and Prejudice. I could have all of them, and I might start like a little collection of them. So yeah, I definitely recommend these, I think, and they're local as well, or at least I think they're yeah, East England, I think they were based. So yeah, that was a really, really lovely find. I restrained myself, luckily, probably for me, some of the shops were shut when I was there, so I didn't spend too much more money. And like I said, I ended up going up into the moors, which is very me. I spent a lot of my time up there. But yeah, I thought I would just share my wee haul, and definitely recommend Haworth as a place to visit for any more book lovers. I'm going to make some soup. I'm going to be making some squash and sweet potato soup. This one here, which is from this cookbook that I mention all the time, one of my favourites, because it's a bit of a grey day and I feel like it's a soup worthy day. And I also have some squash ready to go. It's quite a satisfying noise, isn't it? Because I made a curry, squash and cauliflower curry the other day, and it only needed half squash. So I always tend to make a soup with the rest of the squash, or maybe sometimes I roast it, or I include it in part as like a nourish bowl or like a side or something. Squash, I think, is like, it can put people off using it because it's a bit of a faff to create, including myself. But what I do is I always, if I need a bit of it, I cut up the whole thing, dice the whole thing, keep it in an airtight container in the fridge, and it lasts at least a week totally fine. And it's so versatile, and so budget friendly. Well, a lot of vegetables are, but yeah, it goes a really long way as well, I think, a squash. So yep, so I've got the squash, I've got some sweet potatoes, bulk out with this because I haven't got a huge amount of the squash, and then it basically just fry up some garlic and add in your stock, obviously, and a coconut cream, I think she says, but I've just got coconut milk. I don't always use the whole coconut milk. I tend to tell by the colour how coconutty I want it, if that makes sense. And also I don't always want all the water in your coconut milk. But yeah, this is a nice soup. It's my partner's favourite, so he'll be pleased that I am making this up for him. And yeah, I'll get started doing that now. So more than once I have let my garlic burn. I'm really bad at doing that. So top tip is to put the garlic in when the butter's still only slightly melted, so it's not fully hot, and it means, at least I found, I'm less likely to burn it. What are those little teeth? Goodbye. One of the things I like to do on my weekends to help me slow down is to spend time on some of my creative projects. One of my favourite things that I've picked up again is watercolour painting, which is something that I really enjoyed doing when I was younger, but kind of just abandoned when I became an adult. I'm still very much a beginner with watercolour painting, so I've been having some fun improving my skills and learning more about it, and of course I've used my favourite online learning platform to do that, which is Skillshare, who are kindly sponsoring this week's video. You guys have heard me speak about Skillshare more than once. I really adore this platform, and it is in fact the largest online learning platform for creatives. They've got an incredible range of classes on there, all by expert teachers. I've used Skillshare to help build my creative career, and it's got some great classes, including those in marketing and creative writing, photography, and I've also used it to learn more about things I'm just interested in, like interior design and now watercolour painting. I think I've now found my favourite watercolour teacher. Rosie Hazler is a top teacher on Skillshare, and I've really enjoyed watching some of her classes. She's a nature illustrator herself, which is right up my street. I recently finished her class, Watercolour Your World, a meditative approach to painting landscapes. How accessible this class was. It's absolutely perfect for beginners, and I liked how she showed you how you could paint a landscape from a photo, but also take your paints out and about and paint from real life, which is definitely something I want to do more now we're getting into the warmer months. And this class got me inspired to start my own watercolour project. So it's a work in progress, but this is a painting I did of a landscape from a photo I have. It's from the Isle of Arran actually, this photo where my parents live, and yeah, I really enjoy doing it, and I like the fact that she showed you how to work from like a pencil sketch and then add in details with like fine line markers, and then add the paint over the top. Just got the sky and a few finishing things to finish, but yeah, I really enjoyed doing it. It was a very meditative class to do. If you would like to try out a new slow hobby, then the first 500 people to click the link in my description can get a 1-month free trial with Skillshare, which I think is so worth doing, and I know that a lot of you now use Skillshare, so it's really been great to hear about how much you've been enjoying the platform and your class recommendations. Thank you very much to Skillshare for sponsoring this video and for continuing to support my channel. I finished this book yesterday, The Garden of Lost and Found. So I've just been doing my wee summary and recording my thoughts and some quotes in my book planner, which I also sell on my Etsy store in case you guys are interested, fellow bookworms. I think it's a really great way of reflecting at the time. I think particularly trying to write a summary is actually quite good practice. It's quite hard to do, particularly with a chunky book like this, like loads happened, so I try to centre it around like the key themes, and yeah, just to record like my thoughts. Sometimes I have thoughts, but writing it down makes it clearer for me how I feel about a book, and then yeah, that's particularly what I really love is saving quotes so that they're easily accessible, which are great to share in my writing, but also just informing my life. And also, yeah, you can give it a rating as well in here. So yeah, I don't know, I enjoyed this book, I should say. I think I said in my Getting Ready for Spring vlog, this was the one I was most looking forward to reading this spring, and it was a really great spring read because it essentially centred around this garden, and a lot of this plot happened in the spring, although there was a lot of plots that went through all the different years. And it was the first book I've read of Harriet Evans, that was really nice. I think a quote from the Irish Times in the back kind of summed it up. It says, "No one writes gripping family sagas quite like Harriet Evans." So I definitely think the family element of this was really, really strong. So essentially the whole plot surrounded this painting which was of a garden that's called the Garden of Lost and Found, painted by this man, Ned, who is an artist, in just before the World War One. And it spans two different timelines. So you've got him and his wife Liddy and their children, and then you've got his great-granddaughter, I think, Julia in modern times, and her children. And she ends up moving back and inheriting the house, Nightingale House, where this garden exists, because of marriage issues. Essentially, she moves her 3 children there. And essentially, there's a lot that happens in this plot. There's a lot of like family dynamics that go on, but essentially the plot surrounds this painting, what it represents, what happened to the children in it, what happened to Liddy, the wife in it, and it alludes to some mystery. So at the beginning, you're told that Ned destroys this painting, but you don't really know why, and there's always like a few characters are like, well, did he really? Because it was a really, really famous, really successful painting, and it represented his children, so it was obviously like sentimental. So yeah, there's a little bit of mystery in there as well, and I think definitely in the last like 100 pages or so, a lot of things got revealed, and even wrote at the end, there's like one letter that gets found that reveals an extra element to the plot that kind of helps things make sense. So yeah, I think it's a solid book, I would say. I wouldn't say I was completely swept away with the plot. I think it was good. I think there was elements of it that was maybe a wee bit slow, but because it spanned so long, you know, it covered like a lot of time, a lot of things happened, there was a lot of subplots going on, and I have mixed feelings about some of the romantic relationships. For instance, one of the main ones between Ned and Liddy, I don't know if I ever really felt on board with, but her sister Mary, I really like that one, and I quite like. I think Juliet, so the great granddaughter, her relationship with her husband was very realistic, and I think her relationship with her children, especially like she's got like a teenage child, she's having her own issues. Again, that was really well done. I love the fact that I love the setting. I can't remember if it actually says where this house is meant to be, but it's in England countryside. I'm imagining like Cotswolds or something like that. So yeah, it's nice descriptions of the garden. There is one character in there that I'm like, what was the point? Like, he's kind of like mentioned through the whole book, and then he comes in at the end and nothing happens. Like, it's like, I still don't really know what the author was doing with that character, because you had a little bit of anticipation at the beginning, or like, or mentioning of this like childhood friend of Juliet. You're like, oh, maybe he's going to be like a romantic thing for her, or maybe it's going to be like that reveals maybe they're related. I don't know, there's going to be something, and nothing, and like comes in the end, and I'm like, that was a bit of an anticlimax. So yeah, overall I would say I'd give this 3.5 to 4 stars. So I did really enjoy it, but I think it's useful for me or anybody, I suppose, to really like reflect and think about books, but especially for like my writing and stuff, I find it really useful. But if you want more book content from me, I do write a lot about books on my Substack, and a lot of that is exclusively for my members. So I recently wrote I recently wrote a post about the most surprising books I've ever read, which was really fun to write, so I'll link that below in case you guys are interested in checking that one out. And I also now started doing seasonal reviews, so I shoot videos, reviews of all my reading. So I've already done one for all my winter reading, I'll do one for all my spring. So yeah, that gives me a chance to go through every single book like this and give my thoughts on it, and that's one of my like most favourite things to produce. I really enjoy those. And of course, you don't have to become a part of my paid membership to enjoy my Substack. It's like if you don't know what Substack is, it's essentially like a blog. I've always got the link in my description, visit and read. A lot of my writing is freely accessible, or you can sign up to my like free mailing list and get semi-regular stuff completely free as well. So I would love to have you over there, because writing is my biggest passion, and it's where I see my future. So yeah, it's a really beautiful community that we're creating over there, and it brings me a lot of joy. So I think I'm going to wrap up this vlog here. I hope you enjoyed this weekend in the life, and remember, if you want to access that free trial with Skillshare, you can use the link in my description to do so. Thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope you had an equally lovely weekend, and I will see you soon.